Good morning. Welcome to Saturday, February 4th, 2023. Hard to believe it's the first week of February. We're just about 6 weeks away now from the start of March Madness, which, of course, is everybody's favorite time of year when it comes to college basketball. No football this week unless you count the Pro Bowl, and I doubt very many of you do, because let's face it, that game has become a glorified exhibition that looks nothing like what actual football looks like on a regular basis. We've got the All-Star weekend for the NHL this week, so no hockey to talk about, which is weird. Still the NBA and a whole lot of college basketball. Of course, it's the off week before the Super Bowl. I'm sure everyone's looking forward to that next weekend with the Eagles and the Chiefs. Big news yesterday, of course, was Kyrie Irving, who still thinks the world is flat, wants to be traded, wants to leave Brooklyn, wants to go somewhere else. It'll be interesting to see, if the Nets listen to – you're in the right spot, Rye. Good to see you. It's early yet, I know. I'm surprised you're awake. I figured you'd be sleeping still. I figured you had a busy Friday. It should be interesting. Like we said, Irving wants to be traded. A, I don't know how many teams have cap space for him. B, I don't know if anybody wants him at this point. You know, he's basically demanded his way out of town previously. We've seen him in Cleveland. We saw him in Boston. Now he's in Brooklyn. I know Charles Barkley not overly impressed with the fact that Irving wants to be dealt again. I said yesterday in the Discord, and if you haven't been in the Discord for Winners and Planners, you should get in there, because there's a lot of good conversation each and every day going on in there with some of the experts, and then a lot of the people that like to watch and comment on videos and on the shows and everything. I said he should be sent to Houston or San Antonio, so that way he could, go somewhere where he has absolutely no prayer whatsoever of doing anything this season, and then he can just bitch about being on a losing team with no hope. To which Captain Brian, I'm sure a lot of you have seen him commenting on back when Steve was doing his videos and everything, said San Antonio doesn't want him. So, tough break for him. Like Rye said, get in the Discord. A lot of good stuff in there. Rye's in there a lot. He puts out some free picks. We all put some free picks in there so people can offer their thoughts, and the Capper of the Week contest is in there now. Our good buddy T-Train has been on quite a roll in that regard as well. I think he said he's 14-5, something like that. AJ's had a good parlay yesterday with 3 MAC teams, which is something you don't usually see. But a lot of good people in there, putting out a lot of good information. And plus, we get rid of troublemakers, so that's always a plus too. Let's see, what else we got going on? We had the big fight again yesterday in the NBA with Austin Rivers and Mo Bamba and a bunch of other people. Second brawl this week, because Memphis and Cleveland did it. It's like all of a sudden they think this is hockey in the 70s. 5 players thrown out in that game. And I'll be interested to see what the punishment's coming down from the league, where I saw Dylan Brooks was suspended for his part in the brawl in Cleveland, or with Cleveland the other night. Donovan Mitchell was fined. And then, this is the second time Orlando's gotten into a scuffle already this season. They got into one with Detroit back in December. All of a sudden, hey, Orlando, we're not a great basketball team, but we'll fight. And that's basically the way you have to look at it here. In case you're looking at the games tonight, Luka Doncic won't be playing for the Mavs against Golden State. You have to wonder what kind of offense you're going to get from the Mavericks, who have struggled without Doncic, because they really haven't found a capable second and third scoring options. Christian Wood is hurt. Hardaway Jr. has been inconsistent when he's been healthy. Let's see. Spencer Dinwiddie's up and down. And you wonder who's going to score any points for them. And that's why you have to wonder with the trade deadline coming up, will Dallas make a move? Will they get somebody that can, actually contribute? Because you look at the numbers, and, they're not good. Doncic averaging 33 points a game, and then Woods at 18.4, but like I said, he's hurt. Dinwiddie's at 17.6, but he's not really shooting all that well, 45%. And Hardaway is shooting 37.5% from the field, 34.5% from three-point range. Then you're down to a bunch of bums. Well, not bums, but they're not guys that are contributing much. Dorian Finney-Smith, 8.9 points a game. Josh Green, 7.9. Dwight Powell, 6.5. Reggie Bullock, 6.5. Kleba's been out for a while now. Bertans has done pretty much nothing. He's only averaging less than 11 minutes a game since coming over in that trade in the offseason. McGee, you're not looking to him for anything. He only plays 8 minutes a night. Ntilikina, who cares? You're basically down to, after Doncic, there's not really a whole lot that you have to be worried about. And it makes it a lot easier for other teams. Morning, John. Good to see you. Hopefully things are good with you up there in the Garden State. Princeton played some pretty good basketball yesterday. Took down Cornell in a game that, in case you were wondering, since John lives in New Jersey, he couldn't bet on it. What else did we see yesterday that was interesting? Well, like you said, there were no major games on the college docket. There was only one game with a ranked team, and that was San Diego State taking care of business against Boise State. Boise State, they played without Marcus Shaver, and that was a big blow. He got hurt Wednesday with an ankle injury. Nobody said, Leon Rice didn't say anything about whether he was going to play. And it turned out he didn't. Naj Smith played 30 minutes, had 2 points. I said in the Discord yesterday, if it happened that Shaver didn't play, that Jace Whiting was going to have a big game to help out Boise State. Yeah, he didn't. He was 0 for 2 from the floor. Had no points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and 4 turnovers in 16 minutes. Boise State shot 36.5% from the field, 2 of 18 from 3. Tyson Dagenhart was a non-factor, as he had 3 fouls in the first half, finished with 9 points, 4 rebounds in 27 minutes. That didn't get it done by any stretch. And San Diego State won by 20 points in a game where Matt Bradley was 1 of 6 from the floor and finished with 3. Just shows how badly Boise State missed having Schaefer in the lineup. And probably the other major game on the night, other than Akron beating Kent State in the battle of 2 top teams in the MAC, saw VCU beat St. Louis in St. Louis at the Heifetz Arena, 73-65. And then the late game, Nevada pulled away down the stretch to beat Air Force. It was a 1-point game with 9 minutes and 20 seconds to play. Nevada closed the game on a 25-6 run to win 72-52, to win that one going away. Jared Lucas, 19 points for the Wolfpack. Morning, Will. Morning, Brody. I will say this about the Chiefs. They were, as well as they are in the Super Bowl, they were fortunate last week And if they continue to willfully eschew the run to try and throw against a Philadelphia defense that led the league in sacks with 70, you have to hope that Mahomes' ankle has magically been healed by the time the Super Bowl runs around, because even as good as Kansas City's offensive line has been, that Eagles pass rush will make life miserable for anybody. As teams have found out on a regular basis this season. But we'll talk more about the Super Bowl next week, of course, once we get through all and see how exciting some of the props that they come out with are going to be. I know everybody's excited about what color Gatorade is going to get poured out, because, you know, that's one of those fun props they like to throw out there. Let's see. I know Mason is excited that the Denver Broncos are now going to get Sean Payton as their head coach. So that'll be good for Denver now that they have a coach. Vic Fangio, of course, has now moved out. He's going to be the defensive coordinator for the Dolphins. That'll be interesting as well. And let's see. Disappointing performance last night, the Boston Celtics. You're at home. You're favored rather solidly over a Phoenix team that's still minus Devin Booker. And you play horrible basketball. You score 94 points. You shoot 38.7% from the floor. You lose the rebounding battle by 10. You turn the ball over 14 times. Jason Tatum finished with 20 points, shot 3 of 15 from the floor. That's not going to get it done. Boston's been in a bit of a slump lately. You know, everybody can say, yeah, they're still 37-16. Well, that's great, but you have to remember that this was a Boston team that was setting the world on fire offensively early on. They were 26-10 going into the new year. So they're 11-6, but they've lost 4 of their last 6 games coming into this stretch. They lost to Orlando, they lost to Miami, they lost to the Knicks. Then they rebounded by beating the Lakers in overtime, blew out Brooklyn the other night, and then lost Phoenix. They'll be back at it on Monday in the Motor City against Detroit. Heading into the All-Star break, Boston has 5 games left between now and then. They play at Detroit, home against Philadelphia, home against Charlotte, home against Memphis. Oh, I'm sorry, 6 games. I missed that because they were back-to-back. At Milwaukee, home against Detroit. You'd like to see them go 4-2. Might be a bit of an ask with Milwaukee and Memphis and Philadelphia in there. But you look at the playoffs as we come up with the All-Star break, about a week and a half away now in the NBA, and standings, they're a little closer than what a lot of people would expect. You know, Milwaukee's within a game and a half of Boston now. They've won 6 in a row. Philadelphia just 2 back. Then you've got a little space because Brooklyn is 5 back, Cleveland 5.5, Miami is 8. Then you look at the West, and this is just going with the guaranteed playoff spots. The West is a lot more crowded than it usually is, because from 4 through 10, and actually if you want to even go down 4 through 12 or 4 through 13 with Oklahoma City, the difference between being the 4 seed and the 13 seed in the West is 3 games. Dallas is 28-25. The Clippers are 29-26. Phoenix is 28-26. They're 4-5-6. Minnesota 28-27. Utah 27-27. Golden State 26-26. Portland 26-26. They're your 7 through 10 teams in the play-in tournament. Then New Orleans 26-27. The Lakers 25-28. Oklahoma City 24-27. They're all within, like I said, 3 games of the 4 spot. And San Antonio and Houston, they're playing golf already because they're the 2 teams that you can basically write off at this point. Rutgers. IUPUI playing Green Bay. Yeah, I knew that game was going to come up. This is one of those times where you look at the thing, you're like, holy crap, IUPUI is favored over somebody. It's rare when you can say there's a team in college basketball that is probably worse than IUPUI. But if there is, ladies and gentlemen, it's the Green Bay Phoenix. Green Bay 2-21. They're 1-11 in the horizon. Of course, their one win in the horizon did come over IUPUI back in December on a Monday at home in a game that started at 11 o'clock in the morning. IUPUI, they're 3-21. They're 0-13. They played tough against Milwaukee the other day, lost by 3. They've been playing some tough basketball. You know, they lost by 3 there. They lost to Cleveland State by 6. They lost to IPFW by 6. They lost to Oakland in overtime by 6. They lost to Robert Morris on the road by 7. This might be one of those times when you can actually say it's IUPUI's day. Green Bay is just god-awful. Second worst in the country in defensive efficiency. 348th in effective field goal percentage defense. 308th in turnover percentage forced. 329th in offensive rebound percentage allowed. 350th in two-point defense. They can't shoot. They can't score. They can't hang on to the ball. They can't rebound. They can't do diddly poo. Other than that, they're great. To quote Jim Moore, it sucked. We stunk. That sums up Green Bay's season. I know the line is IUPUI -4.5. It looks like it's trended down slightly. At some books, it's -4. They'll probably steal it. I don't know if they can actually cover. That'll be the fun part. But yeah, I would take IUPUI at home over Green Bay. And that's probably the only time you'll ever hear anything along those lines on this show. Rutgers over Michigan State. I actually like Rutgers a lot. They play some very good defense. Scarlet Knights just blew out Minnesota the other day. They lost by 13 at Michigan State. But guess what? This game's not in Michigan State. It's being played on a quasi-neutral floor. They're playing at Madison Square Garden. But that's still close enough to being in Rutgers' backyard. I think that Rutgers will take advantage of a Michigan State team. And let's face it, this isn't the kind of Michigan State team that you're used to seeing. They're not overly impressive. They lost 4 out of their last 6. And I know you can say, well, 2 of those were to Purdue. And that's true, but they also lost by double digits at Indiana. They lost by 9 at Illinois. They don't force turnovers. Rutgers is second in the nation in defensive efficiency, 7th in effective field goal percentage defense. They force turnovers. They force teams to take bad shots. They can block shots. They'll steal the ball. They'll make life miserable for you. I think Rutgers wins in that one. Now, let's see who else Will was asking about there. Southeastern Louisiana. Oh, yeah, and John said he can't bet Rutgers. Of course. I forgot about that too. Because most of the time when we talk about college basketball, we don't talk about Rutgers. Or when we talk college football, we didn't talk about Rutgers because nobody wants to talk about that. IUPUI and the under. We've gone to that well before, and it's worked, right? The weird thing is both teams have gone over more than the under this year. With Green Bay 13-10 to the over, IUPUI 13-9 to the over. The total is 132-ish. The first meeting was 68-61. But IUPUI, their last 10, their lowest point total, they've only scored in the 50s twice. I can see that one actually going over. It could be, offensive bonanza. You might get almost 140 because Green Bay is that bad defensively. Southeastern Louisiana, not as much fun as Northwestern State. But we'll take a look here. Southeastern Louisiana in action today at home against Corpus Christi. That game is going to be tough. I mean, you look, and the first meeting was a 3-point overtime win for Southeastern Louisiana on the road in mid-January. They've won 8 of their last 9 coming into that stretch. Their one loss was to Northwestern State in overtime. Corpus Christi, they've won 3 in a row. They're coming in off a 17-point win over New Orleans the other night. That game's basically a coin flip. It's going to depend on how well Southeastern Louisiana handles the Corpus Christi's defense, which is not good. In fact, both these teams are very bad defensively. Corpus Christi, 345th in effective field goal percentage defense. Southeastern Louisiana, 352nd. I think where you might run into trouble is on the perimeter. Southeastern Louisiana, 351st in 3-point defense. Meanwhile, Corpus Christi is 46th in the country in 3-point shooting. They also have an edge at the free throw line. I'm going to lean Corpus Christi. Get some revenge. But I don't think it's going to be a very close game. I don't see it being decided by more than a couple of points in that contest. And Will also talking about Cincinnati. Take a quick look at them. And the Bearcats are playing none other than UCF, the good old Central Florida boys. Cincinnati bounced back from a 2-game skid where they lost to Memphis and Houston by beating Tulsa rather soundly. UCF, they were playing good basketball. It seems like they hit a wall after that double overtime win over Memphis back on January 11th. They've lost 4 straight since. Lost to Tulane on the road, lost to South Florida on the road, lost to Houston at home, and they're coming off a home loss to Temple last week. Now you have to go to Cincinnati. The Bearcats still have DeJulius. They still have Nolly, who, just seems to bounce around from college to college and never settles in anywhere. Cincinnati's pretty tough defensively. They play good basketball at home. Let's see what the line is. Cincinnati. Let's see. Okay, Cincinnati minus 5.5. They're 11-3 at home. Just taking a look here. I don't know. I see that being like a 3 to a 5-point game. I think Cincinnati will win. I don't know if they'll cover. It depends on how well they shoot down the stretch because they aren't necessarily a great free throw shooting team. They shoot just 68.2% at the stripe, so they could screw around and let UCF hang in there. And UCF is 19th in the country at free throw shooting. I think Cincinnati will win, but I don't know if they cover the line. Bryce said the New Jersey rule is stupid. There you go. This Clemson bounce back. But, the one thing I hear all the time down here is hearing about Clemson because nobody wants to talk about South Carolina basketball because they're terrible. Which is why you make a decent profit betting against them. Clemson today hosting Miami, and that's going to be another interesting game. The Hurricanes playing some pretty good basketball. The game at the Little John Coliseum today. Miami has alternated wins and losses in their last 8 games, which puts them on pace to lose today. since they beat Virginia Tech Tuesday in another shootout, 92-83. It's hard to get a handle on Clemson because, they've played some good basketball at times, but they've also been fortunate because they've won a lot of close games. If you look at their schedule, they beat Towson by 5. They beat Virginia Tech by 3. They beat Pitt by 1. They beat Virginia Tech by 1. They beat Florida State by 1. So you have to wonder, is this team really not as good as their 10-2 conference mark would tell you? Because let's face it, they just lost to Boston College. And I get the game was at Chestnut Hill and everything else. But you scored 54 points against a Boston College team that is 11-12. I don't know if Clemson bounces back today or not because it's tough to defend Miami. I mean, let's face it, the Hurricanes are a very efficient offensive team with Pack and Omir and Isaiah Wong, Jordan Miller. I know the game's on the road, and the funny thing is, in that stretch, those 4 losses in the last 8 games were all road losses. They lost at Georgia Tech, they lost at NC State, they lost at Duke, they lost at Pitt. They had a chance to win all those games. They lost at Georgia Tech by 6. They lost to NC State by a bucket in overtime. They lost to Duke by a bucket. And last week, they lost to Pitt in a game they led 68-60 with 2:29 to play and gave up the last 11 points to lose 71-68. I'm not counting out Miami here. I think Miami, they've got good, capable scoring options. I'm not sold on Clemson. We saw them get exposed the other night where you couldn't score against Boston College. I mean, come on. You were up 19-8 halfway through the game and then scored 4 points the rest of the half. And after that, you were trying to play catch-up the rest of the game. But they shot 32% from 2, 28% from 3, and let Boston College, who's not a great team, have their way with them. I'm going to lean towards Miami. And that's why is Virginia a dog to Tech? I don't know. I saw that too. I said, ooh, look, Virginia. Makes no sense. I guess they're saying because, maybe it's because the game is in, Blacksburg. I don't care where it is. You're looking at a Virginia team that's won 7 straight. They already beat Virginia Tech by 10 in Charlottesville a couple weeks ago. I like Virginia here. Do I think that Sean McDermott is holding back Buffalo? No, I don't. I think the issue is that they didn't change their scheme against Cincinnati, and that was the difference in the game. They played complacent. They played soft. They didn't try to generate a pass rush or make life difficult for anybody, and they left guys wide open. I don't think that's McDermott's fault. I think they need to get some more skill position players and actually commit to a run game. Sorry, Ryan. I know you were looking for Clemson. I just don't trust them after seeing the way they played in conference play. I mean, how many times are you going to slip by bad teams before something comes back and bites you? I mean, for your sake, I hope Clemson wins. I just it's hard to have faith in them considering what we've seen from them on a regular basis this season. Now, of course, let's not overlook the fact that in case you don't get enough picks from watching the show, run the promo code on the bottom of the screen. You can get go to experts.winnersandwhiners.com and get expert picks. You can either get parlays or you can get single game ones or you can get season plays by sport, or you can do it by the week, you can do it by the month, whatever works for you. Use the promo code there. You can save 50% off. Of course, like we said, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button so you know when the show is going to be on the air. In case you're living under a rock or you were out late last night or whatever, it's 9 a.m. on Saturdays until further notice, at which point, personally, I wouldn't mind if it got moved to Friday night. But I know a lot of times the lines are fuzzy at that point. But, of course, make sure you always check out Winners and Winers, because you can check out all the videos on YouTube, or check out the site for the review or previews of every game that's going on of relevance. There's expert picks from, of course, Mason and Loud and Mark Rule and Arthur and a whole bunch of other guys. There's so many of them, it's hard to keep track. But use the promo code and save yourself some money, get yourself some picks, then put some money in your pocket. It works out. We'll start with 3 for the money. And if you look, there's Virginia. I took them last night at plus 1.5 because I don't see why they're an underdog either. When you're talking about a Virginia Tech team that has been trending in the wrong direction of late. Yeah, they were great when they were 11-1. Since then, they've lost 8 of their last 10. I know they beat Duke. I know they beat Syracuse. They just lost at Miami. They also lost at Clemson. They lost at Virginia. They lost at Syracuse. They lost at home to Clemson and NC State. I just don't know what happened where all of a sudden Virginia Tech hit a wall. But it's tough to score against Virginia. And I get they're at home, but I don't see why they're favored. Tony Bennett, still new players, same strategy, and it's still working. Vanderplas has been a decent addition after he came over for Ohio. Armand Franklin, Jaden Gardner played at East Carolina. So you're talking about a lot of good pieces in there. I'm going to ride with the team that's on a roll. Milwaukee over Miami. We talked about the Bucks winning 6 straight coming into this one. The Heat just lost to the Knicks at Madison Square Garden the other day. Uninspiring performance. I don't think Antetokounmpo will go for 54 like he did against the Clippers the other night, but I think he will have a good game. I don't know if Adebayo is enough to handle him by himself, because then they can just dump it off to Lopez or anybody else. But I think the Bucks will win at home over Miami. San Jose State over Wyoming. San Jose State, another team that nobody talks about because they play in the Mountain West and they're behind teams like San Diego State and everything. They're still 13-9. They're not a great team because they've lost 5 of their last 7. They do own wins at Colorado State. They beat UNLV in overtime. They beat Santa Clara on the road. And their last home game, they whipped Air Force by 30. They beat Fresno State by 10. Wyoming is a good team when it comes to playing at home. And this is clearly not the same team that we've seen the last couple of years for Jeff Linder. He hasn't seen Graham Ike all season. Xavier Dussel has regressed. Hunter Maldonado is trying to do everything he can to keep the team afloat, but it's not working. You look, and Wyoming has yet to win a game that isn't on a true road game this season. They have 6 of their 7 wins at home. Their 7th win came on a neutral floor against Howard back in November. On the road, lost to Fresno State, lost to New Mexico, lost to Utah State, lost to Air Force, lost to UNLV. So that 0-5 mark, probably going to be 0-6. I like San Jose State. They've played decent. I think they're due to bounce back after getting drubbed by San Diego State last week. They've had a week off to learn from that. They're good on the glass. They won't force the tempo. They shoot the ball decent, except at the free throw line. That's why I'm glad the lines are so small, because I don't have to worry about them letting things slip away too much. So I'll take the Spartans over Wyoming. 4-4 of the show. Southern Miss or Georgia State. Southern Miss, has quietly been one of those teams that has won a whole lot of games that nobody's talked about. 20-4 on the year. And you look in their 4 losses were at Northwestern State, at UNLV, to Louisiana, and to Marshall. Those are 4, well, I guess you could throw out UNLV. But the other 3 teams playing some pretty good basketball. And even UNLV's 15-8. But Northwestern State, I had them the other night against Houston Christian. They won. They're 15-8 down in the Southland. Louisiana, I had them on my ticket the other day against Texas State. They won convincingly. They're 19-4, 9-2 in the Sun Belt. Marshall, another team I had earlier this week against App State. They won that one. They're 19-5 and 8-3 in the Sun Belt. So you look, and these teams that Southern Miss have lost to are pretty decent basketball teams. You know who's not necessarily a decent basketball team? Georgia State. 10-13. They've lost 7 of their last 9. They are coming off a 4-point win over Georgia Southern. But they can't shoot straight. 347th in effective field goal percentage. 356th in 3-point shooting. 321st in 2-point shooting. Southern Miss pretty good on the defensive end of the floor. I think they'll come up with enough points to earn the win there. As long as they don't get caught looking ahead to that showdown Thursday night in Hattiesburg when they host Louisiana, with the top spot in the Sun Belt potentially up for grabs. That'll be a pretty big matchup in the Sun Belt Thursday night when the Raging Cajuns take on the Golden Eagles. Alabama over LSU. In case you haven't been watching LSU, not good. Alabama, they bounced back from that loss to Oklahoma in Norman in the SEC Big 12 Challenge. They lost by 24 to Oklahoma in a game where they forgot to show up. What did they do after that? Well, they beat Vanderbilt 101-44. Just absolutely beat the brakes off of the Commodores. Nate Oates' team, 19-3 overall, 9-0 in the SEC. LSU, let's see if we can find anything good to say about them. They've been consistent. 9 straight losses. They were 12-1 after they beat Arkansas on December 28th to open conference play. Since then, 0-9. Lost to Kentucky by 3, lost to Texas A&M by 13, lost to Florida by 11, lost to Auburn by 18, Tennessee by 21, Arkansas beat them by 20, Texas Tech beat them by 8 last week. They lost by 10 to Missouri. Oh, and in there they played Alabama 3 weeks ago in Tuscaloosa. Final score there, Alabama 106, LSU 66. Hard to like a team that's lost 9 in a row. Alabama 3rd in the country in effective field goal percentage. They're 2nd in 3-point defense. They're 4th in 2-point defense. They're 5th in offensive efficiency. Oh, yeah, and they like to run. Number 1 in the country in adjusted tempo at 73.5 possessions a game. Nate Oates getting a lot of production from Quinterly and Brandon Miller and Mark Sears and Clowney. They're a dangerous offensive team. And when you run at that clip, you can run teams ragged. And if there's one thing that Matt McMahon does not necessarily have in Baton Rouge, it's quality depth. I know he brought KJ Williams with him when he took this job and everything. There's a big difference playing in the Ohio Valley to playing in the SEC, and this is the learning curve that McMahon and LSU have to deal with going forward. The Nets over the Wizards. The Wizards pissed off some people in the Discord last night. They blew an 18-point lead at the half. Lost to Portland 124-116, bringing their 6-game win streak to a halt. They gave up 73 points in the second half. Not exactly the way you want to close a game. The Nets are rested. Washington this season playing in the second game of back-to-back situations. Let's see. They've actually been decent, but they're on the road. They're 12-16 as the visiting team. They've been outscored in those contests. And you have to wonder, what did that game take out of them after getting lit up in the second half by a Portland team that's middle of the road? James Madison over App State. James Madison did me a favor earlier in the week when the Dukes took down Old Dominion. And now they get to go to App State, a team that has been inconsistent. 13-11. They lost to Marshall the other day, scored 58 points. They're not a big offensive team. They don't like to run. James Madison does. App State won the first meeting on the road. I think that this is a chance for the Dukes to avenge that and get back in the win column, provided they actually can convert some free throws. Shooting to 69% at the line. The one good thing about that is they get a lot of volume because they have the 15th highest free throw rate in the country, 0.407 free throws per field goal attempt. So if they could shoot like Tulane or Villanova does at the line, they'd be a lot better than 16-8. Because you look at some of their losses. Lost to Valpo in overtime by 2, lost to Virginia by 5, lost to Coppin State in double overtime by 7, lost to Texas State by 1, lost to South Alabama by 1. And just taking a quick look at some of those games here for James Madison. The loss to Valpo, they missed 12 of 42 free throws. Virginia, they were okay. They were 13 of 18. They were 20 of 29 in the loss to Coppin State. 14 for 24 in a 1-point loss to Texas State. And against South Alabama, 13 of 18. So they're a couple of missed free throws away from probably having 19 or even 20 wins on the season. I think they can beat App State and avenge that loss. That takes us to the shot in the dark. Phoenix over Detroit. Both these teams played last night. Both teams won. Phoenix beat Boston 106-94. Detroit rallied to beat Charlotte 118-112 in the battle of the two worst teams in the East. I think Phoenix, they've found a little momentum all of a sudden because, they were playing dead in the water for a while. But all of a sudden lately they've been playing some better basketball. They come in with 7 wins in their last 9 games. And they put together a good showing after getting the doors beat off them by Atlanta at home. Losing 132-100 by beating Boston and holding the Celtics to 94. The Pistons, not good. I give them credit for winning yesterday. Don't have faith in them here. I'll take Phoenix minus the points. Morning, Captain. We were talking about how you said Kyrie Irving is not wanted in San Antonio earlier because we were talking about the Discord. But hopefully things are good down there. I know that you were on shore for a little bit, so hopefully the weather is conducive for you out there going forward. I know there was a lot of ice storms and stuff throughout the Lone Star State, which was kind of funny because considering the weather was actually decent a lot of other places. Portland over Chicago. I know Portland played last night. I know Chicago did not. I also know Chicago has not been overly impressive by any stretch of the imagination. Oh, come on, Cap. You guys should think about how great your team would be with Kyrie Irving and Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell and Podol and Malachi Branham and insert name here. And this could be your jersey. I'm running out of places where I could send him. I mean, I guess we could send him to Houston, but I don't know how he fit in there either. North Texas over Rice.
Yeah, it wasn't Dr. Freeze. It was my computer saying that it's not used to me being awake at this point of the morning. So it restarted itself. I just skipped back to where I was. There we go. Yeah, the joy of stuff is, sometimes it decides it's going to reboot itself for no apparent reason because I'm not usually on it at this time of the morning during the week. No, you're good. You're good. That was technology deciding it needed to do an update for no apparent reason, even though I have it set not to do it when I'm actually online. So I apologize for that. Like we said, North Texas over Rice. Rice played some good basketball for a while. They've had their struggles lately. And everybody knows that if there's one thing you can count on with North Texas and Grant McCasland, it's playing good defense. Rice did win the first meeting in Denton. They won 72-60. Since then, North Texas has won 3 straight. They gave up 52 points to UAB, 59 to UTSA, and 42 to UTEP. Rice, meanwhile, has lost 2 straight. They fell to UAB by 18 at home. They fell to Louisiana Tech on the road the other day. You're talking about a massive clash of styles here. Rice 57th in the country in tempo, 34th in effective field goal percentage. Meanwhile, North Texas dead last in tempo, 58.5 possessions a game. They will sit there and hold the ball and make sure you think of four corners offense. You know how the shot clock is 30 seconds. Average possession for North Texas, almost 22 seconds. I like the Mean Green based on their defense to get the win in that contest. Troy over Texas State. We talked a little bit about Troy earlier, and we talked about Texas State. I know Troy has struggled lately. They've lost 5 of 6. They are at home. And let's face it, Texas State has lost 5 of 6 themselves, and they haven't had a lot of luck on the road lately. Lost to Louisiana Monroe, lost to Southern Miss, got drubbed by Louisiana the other day. The one thing you can say about Texas State is they're a lot of It's a one-dimensional offense. They're fourth worst in assists per field goal this season, 40.8%. They don't shoot a lot of threes, which is good. They have the fourth lowest three-point attempt percentage in the country at 24.4% of their field goal attempts. The bad news is they can't shoot those or twos. 337th at effective field goal percentage, 46.1%. I don't like Texas State. I watched them get hammered the other day by Louisiana. Troy's not as good as Louisiana, but they're good enough to cover the line and get the win here. Lakers over the Pelicans. Somebody tell me what happened to New Orleans being good, because remember earlier in the season they were a top of the Southwest Division for about 15 seconds. And now you come in, they've lost 10 in a row. They're fading in the Western Conference. I mean, like we said earlier, the difference between 4 and 8 or 4 and 13 in the standings is only 3 games, but you've lost 10 in a row. I know injuries have taken a toll because Williamson has been out and Ingram missed time, and I guess we want to say Herb Jones and Larry Nance and those guys. McCollum has missed 6 games. But this is a team that was playing good basketball, and it's like the next man up is forgotten to get off the bench, because 10 straight losses aren't going to get it done. And don't get me wrong, I am no fan of the Los Angeles Lakers by any stretch of the imagination. But the one thing that they have that the Pelicans don't right now is health, and that's a big factor. In the month of January, and let's say since the start of the new year, the Pelicans are, 3 and 14. So they apparently like 2022 a lot better than they like 2023. Arkansas over South Carolina. We talked a little bit about South Carolina earlier, and the summation on them was they're not good. They come into this one, they've lost since the new year. Going into 2023, they were 7-6. In the month of January, they were 1-8. Their one win, a 3-point win at the Rupp Arena in Lexington in a game where they were a 20-point underdog. After they won that game, they promptly came home and lost by 41 to Texas A&M. Right before that game, they were at home and promptly lost by 43 to Tennessee. They also lost by 12 to Ole Miss. They lost by 15 to Auburn. They lost by 21 on the road at Florida. They lost by 3 last week on the road in overtime at Georgia. They lost Tuesday by 15 at home to Mississippi State. Arkansas, Eric Musselman, his team's won 3 of their last 4. They beat Ole Miss by 12. They beat LSU by 20. They hung tough against Baylor. They lost by 3 on the road in Waco at the Farrell Center. And they're coming off an 11-point win over Texas A&M Tuesday. And I think, Ricky Council the fourth probably going to have a big game for Arkansas in this one. South Carolina, they seem to be allergic to defense. They seem to be allergic to offense. Lamont Paris, I feel bad for him. He took over this job. Unfortunately, they didn't necessarily give him a lot of talent to work with. You got Gregory Johnson, you got Hayden Brown, and then, after that, it kind of falls off a cliff. Arkansas should win that one pretty convincingly. Davidson over UMass, an Atlantic 10 game. I was kind of surprised it was a pick 'em, to be honest. UMass has been wildly inconsistent. I know Davidson has been on a slump lately. They've lost 6 of 7. But if you look at the losses, they've been in most of those games. They lost by 4 to Richmond. They lost by 2 to George Mason. Dayton beat them by 7. St. Louis beat them by 4. VCU beat them by 2. UMass just lost by 11 to George Mason. And without Noah Fernandez, and Fernandez has been in and out of the lineup this year, it's been tough. He's played just 11 games. I know you got TJ Weeks in there. You got Matt Cross. You got RJ Luis. I just don't trust a UMass team that's 339th in 2-point shooting and 322nd in effective field goal percentage to reliably win a game. Iowa State over Kansas. I know everybody's like, well, come on, Kansas just beat Kansas State. Well, that's true. But Iowa State is no pushover, even though I'm a little leery going back to the well after watching them blow that 21-point lead in the second half the other day against Texas Tech in a game they lost in overtime. But this is still an Iowa State team that makes life miserable on the defensive end of the floor. They lead the nation in turnover percentage at 26.8%. They're fifth in steal percentage. They're 44th in block percentage. The one thing Otzelberger needs to do is get some depth because, Jaron Holmes and Osuni both came over for St. Bonaventure. Kalsher, they need to get some secondary guys because those guys will all be gone. They're all seniors. Same with Caleb Grill. So it'll be interesting to see what Otzelberger does going forward. But this is a battle-tested Iowa State team. I think anyone basically in the Big 12 is a battle-tested team because that's been such a good conference. Kansas took the first meeting this year. They won by 2 in Lawrence. I think Iowa State's going to pull out a 1 or 2 point win in Ames at the Hilton Coliseum tonight. Hey, T-Train. Good to see you. Yeah, I know it's cold up there in the Northeast. My parents still live, like I said, south of Buffalo, and the temperature this morning, from what I saw, was about -2. Down here, it's let's see. This morning when I got up, it was 20. What did I say? 27 or 29. It's supposed to get up into the 40s. They're talking by early next week it'll be back up in the 50s and 60s. So I'm not going to complain. I've seen you on a roll in the Discord too, so good to see that you got in there and you've been having some good success. Even if it was Akron winning yesterday, which I was not happy with. I thought Kent State would have played better than they did. Oklahoma +7 against West Virginia. I know Oklahoma is not a great basketball team. They've lost 7 of their last 10, but hey, they just beat Alabama by 24 points at home. They beat West Virginia in the first meeting 77-76 in Norman at the Lloyd Noble Center. I don't know if they'll necessarily win this game because they'll have to deal with, of course, press Virginia. But I think they're good enough to hang in and cover the line because two things with West Virginia you can count on. One is that they're going to press you for 40 minutes. The other is they're going to get to the free throw line a lot, and they're going to send you to the free throw line a lot. The Mountaineers 9th in free throw attempts per field goal attempt this season. They're 335th in sending the opposition to the line. So if Oklahoma makes free throws, if Tanner Groves can have a good game, and Jacob Groves puts up some numbers, and Sherfield. Don't sleep on Oklahoma. T-Train saying he's going to take Xavier over St. John's. -8.5. I like Xavier. I mean, I didn't think that they were going to have the struggles they did last week against Creighton. But this game's at home. They beat St. John's by 5 on the road in the first meeting. The Red Storm is fading in the wrong direction. You know, they're another team like LSU. They started the year strong. They were 11-1. Since then, they're 3-8. You know, they beat UConn 3 weeks ago on the road. That's probably their signature win of the year. But you look at the rest of their games, lost by 15 at Villanova, lost by 22 at Seton Hall, lost by 3 at Providence, lost by 28 at Creighton. They're not a good road team. Even going back, they lost at Iowa State on the road. I think Xavier will probably win by 10 or 12. They're not afraid of St. John's pushing the tempo. St. John's second in the country behind Alabama in tempo. Xavier 22nd, so they're not adverse to running. And St. John's has issues defensively, keeping other teams from scoring. And they can't shoot free throws, and that's going to doom them too. I like it, personally, T-Train. Yeah, I leaned. I took Virginia as well. Nerdy but worthy. How confident am I in my Iowa State pick? I mean, you're talking the Big 12. It's a tight conference. I mean, almost every time you go out there, you're seeing a close game. I like the fact that Iowa State's at home. I like the fact that Iowa State's got a bunch of seniors in there that can that aren't going to get rattled necessarily, especially in their own building. I think they kind of wilted a little bit against Texas Tech, but that was in Lubbock. I think playing at home works in their favor. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a stone cold lock, and anybody that does tell you that is, just trying to pump things up. I think they've got a pretty good chance. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you should go against your gut. If your gut tells you Kansas is going to win, then stick with it. I'm leaning towards Iowa State based on the way they play defense and the fact that they went into Lawrence and only lost by 2. And you look at the losses that Iowa State has in the conference. They're 6-3. They're 3 conference losses, all on the road. They lost by 2 to Kansas. They lost by 2 to Oklahoma State. They lost by 3 to Texas Tech. They beat Kansas State at home. When they faced Texas Tech at home, they beat them by 34. They beat Baylor by 15 in this building. Those are reasons why I'm leaning towards Iowa State. Yeah, that's true. That's Rye's. Rye talks about that too. The unranked team favored over the ranked team. I just think that Virginia Tech is trending the wrong direction. I think they're only favored because that game is in Blacksburg. I think, if that game was in Charlottesville, we wouldn't be talking about Virginia Tech being favored. Especially when, like I said, you've lost 8 of 10 and Virginia's won 7 in a row and they've already beaten you. In that case, because Virginia won by 10 in Charlottesville last month. Finally, the Clippers over the Knicks. I know the Knicks beat Miami the other day. I also know the Knicks are, let's be honest, they're inconsistent. They can put together some good performances, and then they can put up a bunch of duds. And this line is bumped a little bit further in favor of the Clippers to the point where now they're favored by 3.5. It was 2.5 last night when I did all the research. You're looking at a Clippers team that, as of right now, will have George and Kawhi Leonard. Meanwhile, Brunson is questionable for the Knicks with an illness. He didn't play against Miami. Mitchell Robinson is, of course, still out with that broken thumb they had surgery on. And the one thing is the Clippers very good defensively. They're not intimidated playing on the road. I like their chances. I think they can win outright. I think they can cover 2.5 or 3.5. I just don't buy into the Knicks. They're just not a great basketball team. Granted, you don't have to be a great basketball team to make the playoffs these days, but it sure helps to be more consistent than what we've seen from the Knicks, who, they beat Boston and Cleveland, then they lost to the Nets and the Lakers, and then they beat Miami. But before that, they lost twice to the Raptors and then to the Wizards and to the Hawks. There's no consistency with the Knicks. That's why they're only 3 games above 500. But that wraps up everything on the show for today. Thanks for being here. Make sure, of course, like I said, hit the like and subscribe button so you know when we're here. In case you didn't know, it's 9 o'clock on Saturday mornings. I'd still like to, at some point, to get back to a more daily show, but first we got to get enough views and everything else here to justify doing it. So tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your friends' neighbors, and tell your neighbors' friends to tune in to Just Parlays. Use the promo code on the bottom of the screen. You can save 50% off any of the packages of the experts on experts.winnersandwhiners.com. Enjoy your Saturday. Stay safe. Stay warm. T-Train, you have a great day. Don't freeze up there. Make sure the dog or your puppy doesn't freeze and all that. Have a steak. Have 2. Have a great day, everybody. For Just Parlays and for the Winners and Whiners Network, I'm Chris King. We'll see you next week. So long, everybody.